Welcome to the first video of Preptober. I'm Liselle Sambury. I'm a young adult author, soon to be published in 2021. And yeah, so this is Preptober. If you don't know, so NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month takes place in November, and that's where you try and write 50,000 words or a book in a month. And so Preptober, aka October, the month before, is where you take time to prepare for the fact that you're going into NaNoWriMo, which I highly recommend because that preparation can be really helpful so that when November starts, you're not trying to figure out all that planning detail. You can just like start writing right away. And so I'm going to be posting Preptober videos the whole of October. So I think I have 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 videos planned, and this is the first of them. So this is me figuring out what I'm going to work on for NaNoWriMo. Usually I have like a very firm front runner idea, and it's really easy for me to be like, this is what I'm working on for Nano, but this year is all over the place and I don't really know what I'm going to be doing. So I thought it might be fun / interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all my kind of plot bunny ideas that I'm thinking of doing and kind of describe them and why I kind of want to do them for Nano and why I think they might not be a good fit for Nano. And then I'll jump forward in time a week later after I've noodled on it, and I will share with you what project I ultimately decided to go with. And so that's this whole video. The first idea, so my front runner idea was that I was going to work on this space opera. So this space opera I started a while ago. I'm not sure if I did a vlog where I was working on it, but if I did, I'll put it over here. But essentially what I did is I wrote a full synopsis, I wrote a pitch letter, and I wrote like the first act. So I think that was like the first 50 pages. It might have even been more, to be honest, because it's multi-POV. So then things were longer, and I'd sent that to my agent, but I had also sent it along with another project, and she was kind of felt like the other project was more ready, and I ended up working on that. That was the middle grade Caribbean fantasy that I ultimately ended up shelving. But anyway, I digress. I had that space opera idea. I think it's really good. I really love the voice. I really love the concept, and it's really my it's like Red Rising, which is a sci-fi series, adult sci-fi by Pierce Brown. I really love that series, but I think my thing with the series is that in the later books he got a bit better, but it wasn't very diverse. And so I remember I kind of wanted to do this version, like my answer to Red Rising, but with like a very diverse cast and female centric. And so that was kind of like what that book was. And yeah, so I had some problems with my iCloud way back when, and I lost my Scrivener file. So essentially I had descriptions for every planet. So every planet in the Milky Way galaxy, I had descriptions for, like the aliens and the setting and all that stuff. All of my character sheets, all of that stuff I have completely lost. I don't have it. So I would have to start from scratch on that, which is daunting. So that's kind of the first con against working on that story. And then also now I really think about my author career as a whole when I think about which projects I want to work on. I do stick to the tenet that I think people should work on the project they're most passionate about, but I often have several projects I'm very passionate about, and so that's why I kind of pick and choose based on career needs. And I just kind of wonder if a space opera is way too far out from what I've done before. And I also, so that's another con, but also low-key, I don't know that I have the skills yet to really pull it off correctly. And so that's also kind of a little notch against me. And so, yeah, that's kind of my difficulties with the idea of doing the space opera. I think it has a really good hook. I think the characters have very strong voices, and that's what I like about the story. But yeah, I just don't know that I'm ready for it. The other kind of notch against it is that I planned this as a trilogy with like 2 books. So really it's like a 5-book series. And I don't know that I'm ready to write a 5-book series right now. I think if it sold at most it would sell for 3 books, though what a lot of publishers I'm seeing, or not a lot, I've seen some publishers, what they're doing is they'll sell 2 books and they'll make the 3rd book an option, and they'll kind of decide later whether they want to let you do the trilogy. So that's also an issue. It could like come up, it could be so difficult in so many ways. And part of me thinks that this is really a project I should be doing when I'm much more established as an author. And so that's kind of my cons against doing that project. So that's the waffling on that. And next in my project, so not too long ago, I feel like only like a week ago, I started rewatching The Haunting of Hill House, and it just reminded me of how much I wanted to do a story with like a bunch of siblings and like family drama and like mixed up in a horror, and like it just made me so excited about doing that. And so I came up with an idea for an adult horror, and I'm actually like quite excited about it. I even made a little aesthetic because I was so excited about it. But so essentially I came up with that idea, and yeah, so the pro of it is that I'm really passionate about the idea. I think there are a lot of things that I could do for it that I think would be really cool. And then here comes in the like career considerations. So my debut is 2 books. So 2 urban fantasy books. So my debut and my sequel. And then my horror that I'm about to kind of finish, that will probably be going on submission soon-ish, is a young adult horror. And if we sell it as a 2-book deal, then I'll have 2 horror books I'm writing, and then I'll have my option. And my option will likely be another horror book. So if I sold my horror, I could potentially be writing 3 horror books in a row. And so the idea of working on another horror book, because then we'd just be selling more horror, to me is starting to like make me feel wary of my brand as an author. Because if I did this adult horror and then the adult horror sold, then I would probably be doing like another 3 books of horror. And so I'm just like, at that point, am I just going to be a horror author? And I don't know if that's what I want. I don't think I want to be shoehorned into like doing horror, which is why I like the idea of working on a sci-fi book next, so that I could still give myself that flexibility of like fantasy and then horror, and then I do sci-fi, and then maybe I go back to fantasy and then horror and then sci-fi. And so those are the 3 genres that I really want to work within. And so I didn't want to just do another horror right off the bat, because then I'm like, oh, am I just going to be doing horror forever? So, and that's so like dramatic, like that might not even be the way things go, but that's just the way I started to think about it. And I was like, well, people forget that I write fantasy. And so that's kind of my con for doing that particular idea. So that's also why I'm waffling on that one. And so this brought me to the point in my thought process where I was like, okay, so maybe I don't do that sci-fi. And so, okay, I don't want to do another horror. And I was like, okay, what about a fantasy? I was like, I should do another fantasy. And I was like, maybe I should do like a high fantasy to kind of switch it up. And so that creates its own problem because I'm not great at high fantasy. I feel like, though part of me thinks I'm not great at high fantasy because I hadn't previously plotted my world building, and so it made things difficult later. But essentially, because I had that thought, I have a notes app in my iPhone, and I like list all my plot bunny things there. And so I started combing through all of my plot bunnies to see if I had like a fantasy idea that I thought would be good. And so I've kind of got 2 that I'm waffling on. So the first fantasy idea I thought of, so this would actually be another like urban / contemporary fantasy. And so the idea, I'm trying to like say my idea without spoiling anything. I'm basically calling it like the fairy godmother book. So if you can imagine like a teen fairy godmother, I'm fine with saying that, because I think if anyone was like, I'm gonna jack that idea, it would not look like anything like what I have planned. Like, it's kind of weird. And so I like that idea. I actually think it's really exciting and like interesting. I've like jotted down some notes and I like thought of some scenes in my head. So that was really cool. And then I just started to wonder if it was like stand out enough, and I started to get caught up in that. And I also just like don't have that much prepared for it. Maybe if I prepared more, I would see the idea go that much further, but it didn't feel like it had as much of the passionate spark as like the sci-fi idea or the horror idea, which is kind of why I was like, meh on it. And then I had another fantasy idea. So this one was actually a high fantasy, and I actually had this idea way back when, but there was a period of time where I was watching a lot of shonen anime. So not a lot. I was watching it frequently. I wasn't watching that many series. So shonen anime, like boy anime, I guess it's called. It's just like action adventure. But I had watched My Hero Academia, which I love, and Haikyuu, which I love. So one is like a sports anime and one is like an actual like, it's not fantasy, it's like a superhero anime. But what I had loved about these and what I really noted is I love this idea of this main character that has this super pie in the sky dream that is so ridiculous because they themselves as a character are seen as a loser and seen as not particularly skilled. And so the idea of them achieving that dream is so ridiculous, and everybody like, it's like that whole Naruto thing, like nobody believes in them, everybody thinks their dream is ridiculous and like looks down on them, but then they have this like one kind of special ability that kind of gives them so much potential, but they just don't know how to use it yet. And I really, really loved that concept. And I was like, I want to do like a fantasy book that's like based on that like shonen concept, but like with a girl. So that idea of like having that huge dream that is so like insurmountable, of like coming together with like a found family. And I thought that would be really, really good. And I did think of an idea, and it would be a high fantasy, but it would kind of be like a high fantasy comedy. Like it would kind of be funny, and assuming that I can be funny. And the whole issue that I was having with it is I didn't know where to set it. So I wanted it to be a high fantasy, but then all of my like high fantasy brain ideas were just like medieval settings, and I was like, I don't really know anything about medieval settings. And then I kind of just wanted to like make up a setting from scratch, but then I couldn't think of anything. And so my struggle with that idea is that I have my main idea, I have all these plot points, like I have the characters in mind, so I really know how I can do it. I just have no idea what the setting would look like, and that's my big struggle with it. So that's that one. And my final fantasy idea was, so my second book that I wrote, which was problematic. I talk all about that in this video. But anyway, what I had really liked in it was I really liked the magic system I had set up in there. And I really liked, the kind of, the like, religion / cult thing I had kind of set up in there, and I just wanted to yank that out and to put it in a brand new book. But then the thing is, they're witches, and I was like, no more witches. Your debut is already witches. You can't just do something different for a second and then just go right back to witches. No more witches. And so that was kind of my issue, and I was like, maybe they could not be witches, maybe they could be called something else. But then the book titles that I had come up with for that book I really liked, and then they involved the word witch, and I know the title is so like shouldn't even matter because your title can just get changed anyway, but I was really attached to that title with witch in it, and then I didn't want to not be able to use the word witch, and so I just like, so then it would just be another witch book, and I was like, I can't just do like witch books and horror, and that's my whole brand. I just write about witches and horror, which like works for some people, I guess. Like, I know Holly Black does a lot of like fairy books, so it's not like completely impossible, but I just like, it just felt like too much, and I didn't want to do it. So those are kind of my, those were all of my fantasy ideas. And now, this is where my thought process went, okay, We're not ready to do an epic sci-fi. We don't know that we're passionate enough about the fantasy ideas that we have, and we don't want to do another horror because there's too many horrors in a row. So what if we did a light sci-fi? So my liking of the light sci-fi is that it's closer to what my debut is, and so I like that it has that thread, like it feels like it's still weaving within my author brand. I also like the light sci-fi because then it's like a contemporary sci-fi and I could set it in Toronto again, which makes me so happy. And so I was like, yes, this is it. Sci-fi thriller. Oh yes, that was the thing. I wanted to do a sci-fi thriller. So this is because I wanted to try writing a thriller, and also I thought a light sci-fi thriller would be more market kind. So I find that like the young adult market in general is not really that warm to sci-fi. Alexa Dunn made a whole video about this, but I just find that it's not that warm to sci-fi unless you're gonna do it in quite a different way. It's also approachable. And so I like that because I think there's a lot of like love for thrillers, and I really want to write a thriller, but I could never just write a straight thriller, I don't think, because I would get bored. And so I like this idea of pulling it into science fiction. And so I actually have a sci-fi thriller idea that I had from a while ago that I really, really loved and I'm really, really excited about. The only thing is a while ago I had an idea for a spin-off for my debut, and I wanted to mash that together with the sci-fi thriller I had already had planned. And I was kind of like, I didn't want to let go of that potential. I won't be like kind of exploring any spin-offs for my debut until we kind of see how my debut does and if there's like demand for having that sort of thing. But in case there is, that was kind of my idea, and I was like, so I don't know. But I think the more that I think about like wanting to do a sci-fi thriller and thinking that that idea works really well, the more I'm kind of fine of letting go of that spin-off idea, or kind of just letting it be its own thing. I don't know. But anyway, so that's one idea. And then I had another idea for a sci-fi thriller that was like, how do I describe it? Kind of like a call center thing. So like a sci-fi call center. And so I was gonna do that idea, but I just don't have a lot planned for that. I don't have a lot of ideas. I don't really have anything as fully fleshed out. Yeah, so that's kind of like, I don't know. Those are all of my ideas. It's funny because that doesn't even like scratch the surface of all the ideas I have in my iPhone. I have so many ideas that are just like quick ideas, but these are actually like the ones that are the most kind of prominent and fleshed out in my mind. And yes, these are all of the ideas that I've been waffling through for the past like few weeks since I decided I was gonna do like Preptober videos, thinking about what I was gonna work on, even though I tried not to think about them so I could save all that indecision and difficulty for this video. But essentially those are the ideas that I'm working with, and so I just need to think about it. So I'm gonna take a week to think really, really hard on all those ideas and think what I could possibly make work the best, and then kind of go forward from there. And so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now in my whole thing. So yeah, I'll see you in a week when I'm less indecisive, hopefully, and more decisive. So let's fast forward in time. I'm back. It has not been a week. It has been like 4 days, but now that I had finally given myself permission to think really hard on what project I wanted to do, then it was kind of like I had a faster time figuring out what it is I wanted to do. So which idea did I go with, you might be wondering? And the answer is none of them. So this is what happened. This is what happened. I knew that I decided that I really wanted to do a sci-fi thriller, and I wasn't going to accept anything else, and I wasn't going to let any other genres, I'm talking about you, horror, tempt me. I wanted to do a sci-fi thriller. I just feel like that is where I need to go next. And so I had those two sci-fi thriller ideas I talked to you about. The one that I was thinking of as a spin-off of my debut, I can't separate it from that anymore. Like, in my mind, even though that's not how the idea started, it is intrinsically tied to my debut, and I just think in my head they take place in the same world, and I can't separate myself off of that. And so I just had to leave that idea aside. And then the call center idea, I just couldn't muster the passion for it. I thought it was an interesting idea and plot bunny, but I just couldn't picture in my head what sort of character would fit in that world. Because what I do, my process for coming up with ideas, is I start with a concept usually, and then I'll think of the character at the center of that concept. And if I can't put the character in there, then I can't do the rest of it. And without that character in there, I can't feel the passion to want to push forward with the story. And that's really the issue I was having with that call center idea, is I just couldn't figure out that character that would fit in it. And so I couldn't muster the passion to really care about it enough to want to write it. It felt like if I did that for Nano, I would just be forcing myself to do an idea, and I really just couldn't manage it. So I thought to myself, Liselle, you gotta come up with something brand spanking new. And what was I doing? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I decided that I was gonna watch all this all these sci-fi thrillers so that I could get a better idea of what I might want to do. And then I suddenly got a story spark out of nowhere, so then that didn't even matter. Okay, let me tell you my it's kind of a story spark, not really. But so I watched this movie, I think it was called The Intern or The Assistant. Anyway, it's this indie movie about this girl that's an intern or something at a film production company, and then she kind of realizes that her boss is disgusting and using his privilege to abuse women and stuff, and she's trying, it's all that sort of insidious gaslighting that happens when you try and call out someone like that. The movie itself is horrific, it's terrible, it's so boring, I couldn't stand it. But the atmosphere of that movie, this sort of being in that building, being in an office building, that sort of downtrodden feeling, that feeling of just monotony, I liked that. And so that was kind of what I wanted to bring into this sci-fi thriller. So I'm calling this project The Building, which is the title. I think it's fine to share that title. Usually I don't like to share titles because I'm I don't want anyone to teeth my title, you know what I mean? But it's just The Building, so it's not a groundbreaking title. But anyway, that's the title of the story. It is a sci-fi thriller. I think it might edge a bit on speculative, but I'm kind of toying with that. I don't know that I necessarily want it to be a future Earth, or if I want it to be an alternative sci-fi society. But anyway, it's called The Building. It is about a building. But essentially it's my main character is an intern in the building, much like the assistant / the intern. She's an intern in the building, but she's in this society in which people are quite reserved, and she's very much not that. So she's kind of loud, she's boisterous, she laughs at places where other people don't laugh. She doesn't quite understand what's supposed to be serious and what's not supposed to be serious. And so she's really stands out, and she doesn't quite fit into the mold of what the society is supposed to be, but she really wants to be able to get a job after the internship at the building, because when she finishes up high school, I don't know how I'm gonna work that out, she'll need to find a job, and she wants to work in this building. And then there's some stuff going on. Someone she knows, and how that all how everything unfolds. So I'm really, really excited. I'm really, really passionate about this, which is really important to me. I can say like I want to write in this genre, but if I can't get passionate about the story, then it's a waste of time to do any of that sort of like career planning, because at the end of the day, I have to be really passionate about the story. And if I can't get passionate about the story, then I can't write it, even if I want to write in that genre. So I'm really happy I was able to get super passionate about this. I'm really excited to be writing my first thriller. I'm already planning to like watch a bunch of Alexa Dunn's videos about like planning and plotting thrillers, so I can figure out the best way to work this and how to like make all the sort of twists I have planned work out really well. And so yeah, I'm super excited about doing that for NaNoWriMo. And for the love of God, thank you, because it is a thriller, it will be shorter. So that's my project for Nano, and my goal for Nano is I'm gonna be aiming for 75,000 words in the month. Last year, I'm pretty sure I basically did that for writing. I was writing my horror last year. Oh my gosh, I'm like almost done my horror now, but I was writing my horror last year. And so I think I ended up writing like close to 70,000 words anyway. And so my goal is 75,000 words for this year's Nano. That's 2,500 words a day, which I think I can do, certainly if I crack down. And I'm just so super excited that I'm gonna get to work on this project, and then I'm gonna get to do a sci-fi, because I haven't, you know, done a sci-fi as like a book that I'm trying to push forward in a while. The last time I did the sci-fi, it was that project I talked about, the space opera, and it was too big. And so I'm glad that this is kind of a down-to-earth sci-fi, and I think I can really dig in hard with the character development, which I think is my strength. So that's what I'm gonna be working on for NaNoWriMo 2020. And yeah, I'm super excited. And that's it for this video. Yeah, what are you working on for NaNoWriMo? Please comment below and share what you're gonna be working on, or if you have a video where you talk about what you're gonna be working on, share that as well. That would be awesome. And yeah, so this October, this Preptober, I'm gonna be posting Preptober videos the whole month. So every Tuesday, you'll see a new Preptober video, and there will also be some special secretive videos that will pop up during the month. So look forward to those. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to me already, please subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.